Good.
Yes.
So recruitment is the topic. As we have said, recruitment is crucial. Universities stand and fall with students, and also the right number of students, because very often the number of students also says something about whether or not we got funding from the state, from whatever you depending on the structure of your university, but still the student numbers are very, very relevant for all universities. And as mentioned before, our focus is on bachelor students, and more specifically, we are trying to address the so-called Generation Z. And the Generation Z is more or less defined as a group of people, a group of students or human beings who value, as you can see, authenticity, speed, and also peer connection. So this is more or less our focus. And in order to get started, and already by trying to take the perspective, the mindset of this group of students, we should remind ourselves that we are talking about human beings that have never known a world without smartphones. So we really talk about the so-called digital natives. And as a consequence, these people more or less expect that the information is provided online, and online through and in terms of how they access this kind of information. They access this information through their smartphone or other smaller devices, and they also expect that this information is available 24/7. What we also know from this group of people is that they are skeptical towards this, what we used and what we produced in the past, these commercials which actually tried to sell an ideal world, and we know an ideal world does not exist. And these students are interested in seeing the reality. And there is this kind of beliefs, these feelings that in order to get access to this reality should also be communicated, conveyed by those persons who are a part of this specific setting. And what we also need to have in our minds is that, and this is typically somewhat disappointing for those of us who are also teachers or lecturers, that the majority of these bachelor students are not really interested in the learning process, but in the output, and the output is this kind of degree. And you know that also many of the parents of these students are interested in this output, and the output is then also maybe perceived as a feature of employability. They also hope that if we take the perspective particularly of the parents, that when they are sending their students to this university and not another university, that it also opens the doors to different societal actors of interest, and definitely, and this is closely linked to the employability, they also hope that if they are selecting this university, that their children will actually learn skills and competences that are not only relevant, which is nice, but what matters is what is relevant once the students have completed with their studies. That here we are talking about skills and competences that the job market still requires, or requires for the first time in 3, 4, whatever kind of years. And hopefully these skills and competences are also somewhat sustainable. So they are having a longer half-time. When we talk about the recruitment process, it is very helpful if the persons who are dealing with this recruitment have studied marketing, because, you know, recruitment is very close to the identification of customers. So this actually requires that we have a good understanding of different types of potential students. We are able first to identify them. We are able to develop different types of profiles depending on the type of student we are focusing on, and then based on this profile we are also capable of developing and executing different types of communication strategies. So this means, and also, and this is something you learn when you have not only studied marketing, hopefully also worked in this area. This also means that we have to use different types of communication channels for the different types of students, for the different types of learners. And a principle or an idea how to develop this kind of understanding, or how to deepen this kind of understanding, could be that we are following in something that is here maybe called D-Day. You see, we do have discovery, engagement, decision, and action. And you see and let's assume we are considering this as an entire process, so the recruitment process. And the first sub-process, discovery, is actually capable of answering the question, where do the students find us? So this means we have to think about where we are currently present. Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? Is it YouTube? Whatever, what kind of information are we providing, let's say, with some kind of employer associations? What kind of information are we providing on our university sites, higher education sites? So where do they find us? Based on this, we could then, we should then develop an understanding if and how the students, the different types of student, interact with us. So maybe we are offering quizzes. Are they really using this kind of quizzes? And if yes, who is using these quizzes? In case we are offering videos, who is watching these videos, and the entire video, or do we see that maybe the students stop after some time, or they only see the end of this information? So all this kind of analytics is something we should collect. Then definitely what matters, and here you see what we actually could find useful is also an understanding of the buying process, because the buying process works kind of similar. What actually makes the student, in our case, the prospective students, the prospective learner, to actually decide for us and not other university. So what are more or less the critical or the triggering points that actually makes the students opt for us and not for the other ones? Is this the outcome we would expect? It's the outcome of different aspects, but maybe they are driving aspects. Word of mouth, what the parents say, what the sister says, what good friend says, a good match between cost and perceived benefits and so forth. And then you see, once the decision is made, then, typically we would expect from these persons that they are also then willing to put this decision into action. And this would actually mean that they click on the apply button. And this brings us back to the discussion we had before. That's why it's so important that the application process is, so everything that is followed is as easy as possible, and not that we are maybe clicking on the apply link or button, and for whatever reason it's not working, or we are hanging somewhere, and we try to upload something, but then we could only upload parts of the documents, not all documents, and as a consequence we have to redo the entire application process. We all know from other incidences, this doesn't make us happier. Then when it comes to recruitment, and let's assume we do have local students and definitely also students from abroad, we also need to separate our recruitment process that addresses the locals or the nationals, and the recruitment process that addresses the international student community. If we start, let's say, in our city, maybe our city is big enough, and maybe this is also the main focus of our universities, then definitely we should make sure that we are in permanent contact with prior educational institutions. Think about high schools, vocational training schools. I would even start earlier in the kindergarten. Think about these activities of having a university for the small kids, so that they already learn what a kind of fascinating environment the university is, and how fun learning is, and what opportunities a good understanding, good dedicated skills, competences on whatever subject actually brings at a personal level, and then also at a professional level. To get in touch with the parents, definitely the parents, we shouldn't underestimate the parents and the parents' role, specifically when we are talking about universities that charges a fee. Then typically it is the parents that are paying. So we could think of inviting the parents to virtual coffee mornings and give them an opportunity to discuss their questions, their major concerns, and what we could also think of maybe highlighting recently graduated students, and if the focus maybe is on digital education, that we maybe promote and communicate the journey of the digital journey, the digital learning journey of a student or a group of students that have recently graduated or finished their studies. When we are talking about the recruitment at the international level, here definitely it could be helpful if we have pages, parts on the website or the sites we are using for the recruitment, information about the recruitment, the introduction, the requirements that we have dedicated pages only for potential international students. It might be that we focus on specific countries because these countries are considered attractive for the university, for the higher education system of our countries. Here you see, for example, having dedicated information for students in Vietnam, because very often there are visa-related questions, and the visa-related question might vary depending, might differ hugely from student to student. We could also think, in addition to running fairs on site, we could also think of running these fairs virtually. And ideally, these fairs provide prospective students to get in touch with currently enrolled students, also gives them the opportunity to get in touch with people from admissions to learn what is expected, when it is expected, and how it is expected. And if we are talking about this exchange with currently enrolled students, let's say get a feeling how it is, how it could possibly be to study at this specific university. When it comes to language, this is definitely now good news. The AI-driven translation tools are developing in a very rapid way, which definitely makes communication easier. And definitely then we should think of adding subtitles if needed. Ideally, we are providing the specific information in the target languages. Then we should think of word of mouth. Again, we know that this is again also something from marketing. We are all aware of the power of word of mouth, specifically negative word of mouth, even so that negative word of mouth is, let's say, rare in contrast to positive word of mouth. We should think about how to take advantage of this. Maybe we could think of having ambassadors, universities. An increasing number of universities have ambassadors for different areas. This could be ambassadors for research, and definitely this could also be ambassadors representing the student side, bachelor students, master students, PhD students, and whatever. So we are giving our students more or less a face, and this is always easier. Seeing a face is easier than simply seeing a name or something very impersonal. What is also important, this brings us back what we mentioned before, that we should avoid this kind of made-up stories, but we should provide insights into reality. And then we all know that our universities have many strengths, but our universities also have many weaknesses. This is simply part of any organizations, and we should be honest about it, because everyone, the students, but also we as human beings, we are not stupid. We see rather soon that this is more or less simply a kind of a paradise world, which is not there in practice in real life. And what we could also maybe think of is to take advantage of these vlogger effects, so this kind of artificial created world, bringing together the virtual world with a blogger. And maybe we can encourage our student ambassadors, and maybe some of the student ambassadors are digital students, that they are willing to share insights into a typical day of being a student, being a digital student at our university. And this is more or less a kind of a series, kind of a home story of a student, and what this person is doing, and what are the pros and cons, and we let the person talk about it. And also because, as mentioned before, studies to study means very often it is hard, it is painful. And then might be also to talk about this and the ideas, the measures, the strategies used in order to address this kind of downsides, missing motivation, what the students are doing specifically if you study digitally or remotely. Definitely, we should use the technology and, specifically AI. As we have mentioned before, we are talking about a cohort that expects from any organization that there is this kind of 24/7 type of reaction and response. And then definitely we could think of including AI chatbots, because we know from experience, from practice, that the majority of questions asked by prospective students, by prospective student parents and whatever, that these could actually be also answered by an AI chatbot. And in case they are really difficult questions or questions that go beyond this kind of set of standard questions, then we could actually ask that or provide this kind of information that the person in charge will get in contact with the person asking this question as soon as possible. We should use predictive analytics. Again, here you see marketing. Predictive analytics is nothing new, but now it has become relatively easy to actually monitor what is going on. We should definitely monitor, and this is what we have been doing for many years, that we monitor the traffic that is found in our different portals, on our different sites. But definitely we should then also react if we see that something is not working. This brings us back to what we also said before, from awareness to actual action. And there's no need to have many actions. Very often, what is better to have one action, but we think that this is more or less the weakness within the entire process. It is better that we focus then only on this kind of action, instead of focusing on many actions, but the actions might not be really connected, and then in the end nothing is developing or progressing for the better. And what is also important, and this is also something that is relatively easy or easier nowadays, is that we should, as we have said, the idea would be to identify the different types of prospective students, the different types of learners, and then definitely we should also think about having tailor-made communication, because as we all know, the likelihood is high that a prospective student of history is interested in another type of narrative compared to a prospective student of information technology. And this is something we should also have in our mind. In terms of how to get in touch with them, how to develop also a kind of connection, a form of bonding with the students, specifically these prospective students. Many of them, specifically at the bachelor student, they are undecided, not a big surprise. They are very young, and there are so many different ways, different forms. What we could do to study is, as you know, is only one way, but we should provide them then also here multiple counterpoints to learn what it could mean to study, as mentioned before, for example, history. And this could be realized in the form of maybe a digital lecture that is free of charge. So maybe for those of the prospective student who could think of studying completely remotely, what it could look like. We have already mentioned that we could think of producing this campus tours, 360 degrees virtual reality tours. We can upload them, present them on our websites, on YouTube or whatever, depending on what we have learned, where the students find us. And then also think about having a regular live question and answer session where the focus is really on ask me anything. So no preparation available, and these sessions are, let's say, attended by you see people who are working with the admission, and ideally also attended by current students, different types, different profiles of students, so that potential learners have the opportunity to ask different types of questions, and also to get different types of answers depending on where this answer is coming from. Then this brings us back to this discussion we had before. We should try to decrease the bugs in our application process. You see, ideally there is this kind of 3-click rules. I think, as if we are honest to ourselves, it would be nice if there is one process at all, and not these different sub processes. But definitely the shorter term goal should be that the application process is as easy as possible. If we ask the students to upload information, I don't think that there is, and also no need to also send these documents, the degrees, the authorized degrees, also by mail, and still we see it here and there, and I would say this is definitely not good for all parties involved in the process, and also based on the learning, based on how the students interact with them, how they access resources from the universities, how they interact with the universities. We should also think about what different types of ways for applications should be provided. Maybe there's an increasing number of people, and this goes beyond students, are only using their mobile phones, and maybe then we should also be prepared to have, in addition to the application process that takes place using a traditional the old way style, a laptop or a personal computer, that it is also possible through the mobile phone. So in summary, and maybe some ideas for 2026, so the months to come, because 2026 is still very, very young. What we should have in our mind is that we try to match our approach towards the recruitment of locals with our approach of recruiting international students in the best possible way. Whenever there are similarities, then definitely we should take advantage of these similarities. The likelihood, however, is also high that the different types of students expect different ways of approaching, different ways of communications, that we should provide them. we should actually try to develop a one voice form of communication, and you see this communication and everything surrounding starts with the student hat on. So when we are developing, when we are designing the communication messages, we should actually act as the particular student. And you see, whenever possible, definitely we should take advantage of the technologies that is currently available. We also expect that this technology is constantly updated in our department at our universities to make sure that we are coming closer to this idea of providing information, providing access 24/7. And you see, maybe also as an idea how to proceed, maybe you could check the bachelor landing page in the coming days, review what is provided when it comes to the application process, and do we get the feelings that this information and specifically the way it is provided is more or less designed for a 24-inch monitor, or is it also designed for, let's say, a small screen like our smartphones or mobile phones.